The St. Helena Bay is 50 kilometers long and 20 kilometers wide. The shoreline stretches over 80 kilometers. It is thus not surprising to find a multitude of seabirds. There are a lot of rocks close to the shore, which at low tide offer ideal perches for the birds. In between, one finds lovely sandy beaches, which offer birds an opportunity to pick up food from the sand. The purpose of this video is to give a condensed overview of the birds one can expect to see. It is not intended to serve as a reference, and by no means does it pretend to be a complete record of the birds. What would be an ocean without seagulls? Hartlaub's gull occurs in large numbers around the bay. It is to be found mainly at the coast of Namibia and the west coast of South Africa. Apart from the shores, it prefers to visit city centers such as Cape Town, rubbish dumps, cultivated farmland, and estuaries. The kelp gull occurs almost everywhere in the southern hemisphere. Preferred food is fish, offal, sand mussels, limpets, insects, birds' eggs and young. It drops mussels from a height onto rocks to have the shells cracked open. The grey-headed gull occurs in sub-Saharan Africa, Madagascar and South America. It can in South Africa also be found inland. Apart from the seashore, it prefers large dams, pans, estuaries and coastal lakes. The oystercatcher occurs at the south and west coast of South Africa, as well as the west coast of Namibia. In total, the population is estimated to be less than 5,000 birds, making it a threatened species. The white-fronted plover occurs in sub-Saharan Africa mainly at the coast, but also along bigger rivers. The reed cormorant occurs throughout sub-Saharan Africa. Its distribution ranges from the coast to inland waters of any size, down to tiny dams and ponds. Along the shoreline of the St. Helena Bay, it is by far the most common cormorant species. The total number of all cormorants here is estimated to be approximately 600,000. The swift tern is largely distributed throughout the southern hemisphere. It is gregarious, and can often be seen in flocks of up to 50 birds. Sometimes it can be seen in the company of other tern species and seagulls. Along seashores and estuaries, it mainly feeds on fish. The Caspian tern is the largest of the terns to be found along the coast. It occurs in Africa, Arctic, and Australasia. It occurs mostly solitary or in small flocks. Estuaries, marine shores, large dams, and pens are the preferred habitat. The little stint is the smallest wader in southern Africa. It breeds in the northern parts of Europe and Asia. It migrates to southern Asia and Africa. In South Africa, the distribution is widespread. It prefers open and muddy shores of estuaries, tidal flats, lakes, pens, and dams. The Cape gannet occurs along the African west coast as well as the east coast up to Mozambique. Occasionally they wander as far as Scotland or Australia. In South Africa they breed on 6 offshore islands. Only at Lambert's Bay, situated at the edge of the St. Helena Bay, can one walk onto such an island and view the birds from close proximity. The birds are gregarious. When hunting, they are plunging for fish from a considerable height, usually within sight of land. The skull of the bird is constructed in such a way as to protect the bird's brain when hitting the water. The estuary of the Berg River is a bird lover's paradise. Impressive are the large flocks of flamingos. The Berg River brings in food from the upper parts inland. The estuary is affected by the tides. The inflow of seawater brings in also food from the St. Helena Bay. The water then spreads over a large and flat area, creating the shallow waters the waders among the birds prefer. The water in the estuary is salty, which allows small fish to come in from the sea. They then are a welcome food source for birds feeding on fish. The darter occurs throughout the southern hemisphere except South America. In the St. Helena Bay, one can find it occasionally near the shoreline or in the estuary. The main distribution is, however, almost any inland water of any size, preferably quiet lakes, small pens, and slow-flowing rivers. It mainly feeds on fish, also frogs and arthropods. It dives well and spears fish underwater with its bill. The crater Flamingo is approximately 1 meter 14 tall. With the exception of Australia, Central Europe and North America, the bird occurs throughout the world. It is highly gregarious. Flocks at times number hundreds of birds. It is highly nomadic and in the South African winter moves north to warmer regions. It feeds by waiting with the bill in the water upside down, filtering out small organisms. The lesser flamingo is only 1 meter tall. It is differentiated from its larger cousin by its dark red bill and more pink plumage. It occurs in sub-Saharan Africa, except in the dry and desert areas. It also occurs in India and Madagascar. It feeds mainly on microscopic blue-green algae and diatoms. It is highly nomadic. One bird was equipped with a GPS tracking device. It flew during one night from the middle of South Africa to Mozambique and from there during the following night to Madagascar. An unbelievable feast. The African spoonbill occurs in sub-Saharan Africa and in Madagascar. It is 90 centimeters tall. It prefers shallow inland waters, occasionally lagoons and estuaries. It forages by wading slowly, bill partly or wholly submerged and sweeping from side to side. The avocet occurs throughout southern Africa at the coast as well as inland. Occasionally also in Europe, Central Asia and India. It prefers shallow waters in estuaries, lagoons, marine shores, dams, sewage ponds, pans and coastal lakes. The Cape teal occurs throughout southern Africa, north to Angola, East Africa, Ethiopia, Sudan, Chad and South Libya. The yellow-billed duck occurs in southern Africa, except the drier regions and the deserts in the west. The Cape shoveler is one of the duck species. It occurs mainly in the western and southern parts of southern Africa. It can be found in shallow, temporary ponds and wetlands, estuaries and lagoons. black-winged stilt is 38 centimeter tall. It occurs almost worldwide except the Arctic regions and South America. It forages by wading quickly with high stepping gait in shallow waters. It may submerge head and neck. It prefers shallow waters of estuaries, pans, dams, sewage ponds, wetlands, and marshes. In ancient Egypt, the sacred ibis was worshipped as the god Thoth, dedicated to protect the people from plagues and serpents, hence the name. It was often mummified and buried together with the pharaohs in their tombs. It occurs in sub-Saharan Africa, Madagascar, and the Middle East. Glossy ibis occurs almost worldwide. In southern Africa, it is absent from the desert regions. It prefers shallow waters and neighboring grasslands. The greenshank breeds in northern Europe to Kamchatka Peninsula. It migrates then to southern Europe, South Asia, Africa, and Australasia. Many birds overwinter in South Africa. It prefers dams, pans, swamps, sewage ponds, wetlands, seashores, and estuaries. The grey heron occurs in Eurasia, including Japan and Taiwan, Africa and Madagascar. One finds it in shallow inland waters, coastal pans and lagoons, and sometimes in open grassland near water. Commonly seen wading in shallow water, but will also swim in deeper water. The name blacksmith emanates from the high-frequency click sound this lapwing makes. It sounds like hitting an anvil with a hammer. Its distribution includes southern and East Africa. It prefers shorelines of pans and dams, as well as grassy wetlands. The Cape wagtail occurs throughout southern Africa, Angola and Kenya. One can find it at slow-flowing streams, pools, dams, gardens, parks and wetlands. The pied kingfisher occurs in sub-Saharan Africa, the Nile Valley, Middle East, Southern Asia up to China. Habitat preferences are rivers, lakes, dams, estuaries, canals, and coastal waters.